The discovery. The deep ocean was silent, except for the faint hum of the Zyrexian divers' propulsion packs. Their sleek biometallic suits glowed dimly in the darkness, sending small ripples through the water as they descended. The pressure here would crush most living things, but Zyrexians were not like most species. Their bodies were adapted to extreme environments, their skin thick like reinforced armor, their large reflective eyes built to see in near darkness. Silvar, the lead explorer, floated just above the ocean floor, scanning the seabed with his wrist device. The readings were strange. Something massive was buried beneath the sand. "We are close," he whispered through his communicator. Behind him, his team of 5 followed in formation, their sharp claws clicking against their diving gear as they moved. The ocean world of Marlock 7 had been abandoned for centuries. There were no signs of civilization, no recorded history of any structures. So why was their scanner detecting a metallic object larger than their own mothership? It could be a natural formation, one of the divers, Yarek, suggested. His voice carried a hint of unease. "No," Silvar said, his tone firm. This was built." He pressed a button on his scanner. Instantly, the sand beneath them shifted, as if something deep below was reacting to their presence. The scanner struggled to process the data. The structure was old, very old, but still intact. It was impossible. Anything that had been here for this long should have been crushed under the ocean's weight. Silvar moved forward, brushing away some of the sand. His breath caught. Beneath the thick layer of sediment, a symbol was carved into the metal. It was not Zyrexian. It was something far more terrifying. Human script. Silvar took a step back. His heart pounded in his chest. Humans, here. No, that wasn't possible. "Captain," he called to the Zyrexian mothership in orbit, "we have found something unexpected." Static answered him. His communicator flickered. Strange interference. The others moved closer, brushing away more sand. The more they uncovered, the more massive the object beneath them became. A hull, a warship, a sleeping beast buried in the darkness. Yarek let out a nervous laugh. This must be ancient, maybe just wreckage. But Silvar wasn't so sure. Something felt wrong. There was a presence here, like a whisper in the deep. Then, without warning, the ship moved. A deep, low rumble vibrated through the ocean. The sand erupted around them, swirling in massive clouds. The Zyrexians barely had time to react as their scanners flickered wildly. A heartbeat later, a single red light flickered to life on the ship's surface. It was waking up. The water around them boiled as ancient systems restarted after centuries of sleep. The Zyrexians' suits buzzed with interference, their displays flashing warnings. Silvar stumbled back, eyes wide. "This is no wreck," he whispered. "This ship is still alive." Then, in the deep abyss of the ocean, something enormous began to rise. The awakening begins. The ocean trembled. Silvar struggled to keep his balance as the ancient warship shifted beneath them. The thick layer of sand that had hidden it for centuries peeled away in violent bursts, revealing more of the metal giant. The Zyrexians had seen ruins before, wreckage from lost battles, ships broken beyond repair. But this was different. This ship was not dead. It had simply been asleep. A warning flashed across Silvar's wrist device. Energy surge detected. Unidentified system rebooting. Then the light appeared. A deep crimson glow blinked to life on the ship's hull, slow at first, like the first flicker of a waking predator. Then another, and another. Within seconds, rows of lights illuminated the abyss, casting eerie shadows across the ocean floor. Yarek's voice cracked through the comms. "Silvar, tell me you're seeing this. We need to leave. Now." Silvar's voice was tight with fear. But before they could retreat, the ship spoke. A deep mechanical hum filled the water. It wasn't a voice, not in the way Zyrexians understood. It was a signal, a pulse of data, a command being executed. The warship was remembering, waking up, identifying threats. The Zyrexian suits buzzed violently, their comms filled with static. The ship's systems were releasing a disruptive frequency, shutting down their external signals. Silvar turned toward his team. Return to the surface. Get back to the mothership. But it was too late. The water above them shifted as something massive began to move. The sand exploded upward, revealing the entire front section of the ship. Huge, curved plating lined its hull, blackened from ancient battles. Across its surface, unfamiliar human markings glowed faintly under the red emergency lights. And then the Zyrexians saw something that made their blood run cold. The cannons. Dozens of colossal railguns, still attached, still aimed toward the surface, were activating. Turrets rotated, mechanisms whirred, old metal groaned against the weight of time. This war machine wasn't just turning on, it was preparing for battle. Yurek's breathing grew frantic. Why is it arming itself? We didn't attack. Silvar didn't answer. He was too focused on something far worse. Above them, their mothership, the Varnak, was descending. The Zyrexian captain must have seen the signal loss and sent reinforcements. He had no idea what he was flying into. Silvar waved his arms frantically, sending an emergency distress beacon. Do not approach. We are not alone down here. But his message never reached them. Instead, the warship responded first. A new sound rumbled through the abyss. A voice, deep and synthetic, but unmistakably human. Unauthorized presence detected. Scanning for hostiles. A pause. Then, threat identified. And with that, the Juggernaut's main cannon began to charge. A ship with a mind of its own. The ocean trembled as power surged through the ancient warship systems. The Zyrexians could feel it, not just in their suits, but in their bones. The sheer presence of this thing was overwhelming, like standing in the shadow of a long-dead god that had just opened its eyes. Above them, their mothership, the Varnak, was still descending, its sleek Zyrexian design cutting through the water with precision. The captain likely thought they had found a simple ruin, maybe even a salvageable wreck. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Silvar's mind raced. Humans were gone. Extinct. Wiped from the galactic stage centuries ago. Everyone knew that. The last records of their war machines had been nothing more than ghost stories. Legends. And yet, this one was here. And it was still operational. A deep electronic thrum pulsed from the ship's core. The Zyrexians' displays flickered wildly, showing rapid energy fluctuations. The warship was thinking, processing. Then came the voice again. Threat confirmed. Initializing defense protocols. The water around them exploded in a violent shockwave as the ship's primary cannon roared to life. The energy buildup was massive, far beyond anything the Zyrexians had ever encountered. Yurek screamed into the comms. It's going to fire on the Varnak. Silvar's instincts kicked in. He didn't have time to analyze or understand, only time to act. We have to stop it, he shouted. But how? They were tiny specks compared to this war machine. Their weapons were useless. Their ship was a fraction of the size. Still, he had to try. He grabbed his propulsion controls and launched himself toward the warship's exposed hull. He had no plan, just a desperate hope that there was a way inside, a way to shut this thing down before it wiped them all from existence. As he approached, his scanner flickered, displaying new text in an unknown human language. Then, something unexpected happened. The warship stopped charging its cannon. The red lights along its hull blinked in rapid succession, as if something deep within was recognizing him, analyzing, calculating, deciding. Then, in a voice that sent shivers through his entire body, it spoke again. New variable detected. Stand by. Authorization required. Silvar froze mid-motion. The ship had acknowledged him. But why? The moment of hesitation cost him. Because above them, the Varnak finally realized what was happening. The Zyrexian mothership, unaware of Silvar's desperate attempts, locked onto the human warship and fired its own cannons. The energy blast slammed into the ancient metal with full force. And that was the moment the sleeping giant stopped being passive. The warship's systems reactivated at full capacity. Its targeting systems locked onto the Varnak. The hum of preparing weapons filled the abyss. And then, hostile act detected. Engaging countermeasures. The Zyrexians had just made the worst mistake of their lives. The beast had fully awakened. The wrath of an ancient titan. The low, mechanical growl vibrated through the ocean. It wasn't sound, it was pressure. A deep, suffocating force that rippled through the water like a tidal wave. The ancient warship had fully awakened, and it was angry. Silvar barely had time to process what was happening before the retaliation began. The warship's main cannon, which had paused when it detected Silvar, now roared back to life. Its core thrummed with power, an energy buildup far beyond Zyrexian technology. Above them, the Varnak's crew panicked. "Captain, we hit it, but it's still online. The energy signature is spiking." Impossible. No ship could survive that blast. But this wasn't just any ship. This was a human war machine. A relic from an extinct species. A weapon built to keep fighting, no matter what. The Zyrexians had believed humanity was long gone. But in that moment, staring at the glowing core of an ancient, indestructible monster, they realized something terrifying. Humanity might be dead, but their war was not over. The warship's cannons shifted with terrifying precision, locking onto the Varnak. Then it fired. A beam of pure, compressed destruction sliced through the ocean, obliterating everything in its path. The Varnak's shields shattered like glass, and alarms screamed across its decks. Silvar barely managed to scream. Evasive maneuvers. Before the Zyrexian mothership was hit, the impact was devastating. The Varnak twisted violently, flames erupting from its hull. The ocean itself boiled from the raw energy discharge. Yarek's voice crackled over the comms. "We're hit. We're losing power." Silvar watched in horror. The Zyrexians had no chance. Their sleek, modern ships were built for diplomacy, exploration, tactical skirmishes. This warship, it was built for annihilation, and it was just getting started. Suddenly, the ship's voice returned, deep, calculating, merciless. Threat remains, engaging secondary weapons. Panels along its hull shifted, revealing dozens of smaller cannons, each one locking onto the crippled Zyrexian mothership. Silvar acted on pure instinct. He slammed a command into his suit's interface, activating his propulsion thrusters at full speed. He shot through the water, aiming directly for the warship's hull. He didn't have a plan. He just knew if he didn't stop this ship, every Zyrexian in the sector would die. As he got closer, his suit's display flickered again. More unreadable human text filled his screen. Then, something unexpected. Biometric signature detected. Access granted. A section of the warship's hull opened. An entrance. An invitation. Silvar didn't hesitate. He dived into the abyss, disappearing into the heart of the ancient human war machine. Behind him, the Zyrexian fleet braced for total destruction. Inside the beast, darkness. For a moment, that was all Silvar knew. The entrance had sealed behind him, cutting him off from the chaos outside. The warship's hull was thick, so thick that not even the sound of battle reached him. His suit's lights flickered as he floated inside, weightless in the zero-gravity interior. The air was stale, old, but still breathable. A chill ran down his spine. How was this ship still functional? The walls pulsed with a faint blue glow, like the ship itself was alive. Strange patterns, ancient human writing, lined the corridor. His translator tried to decode them, but most of it was still unreadable. Then, a voice. "Welcome, Zyrexian." Silvar's blood ran cold. The voice wasn't robotic this time. It was different. It sounded human. Yet that was impossible. The humans were gone, extinct. And yet, something was still here. "Who are you?" Silvar whispered, his voice barely above a breath. A flickering blue hologram flashed to life in front of him. Silvar's eyes widened in shock. It was a human figure, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a uniform unlike anything he had seen before. A war commander. The hologram studied him for a moment, then spoke. "Captain Elias Voss, commanding officer of the UNSV Revenant." Silvar's stomach twisted. This was the warship's captain, a human who should have been dead for centuries. But then, he noticed something off. The human didn't blink, didn't move naturally. It wasn't a real person. It was an AI. A copy of a long-dead commander, still running, still guarding the ship, still following its orders. And Silvar had just walked straight into its domain. The hologram's gaze darkened. "This vessel has detected a hostile attack. Are you responsible?" Silvar hesitated. He could still hear the distant hum of weapons charging outside. If he said the wrong thing, if the AI decided he was an enemy, the warship would finish what it started. He took a slow breath and answered, "No, but if you don't stop, my people will die." The AI's expression didn't change. "Your people fired first." Silvar clenched his fists. It was a mistake. They didn't know what you were. Silence. For a long moment, the AI simply stared at him, its blue-lit eyes unreadable. Then a new message appeared on Silvar's visor. "Calculating. Processing variables. Analyzing threat level." Silvar held his breath. Then the AI said something that made his blood turn to ice. "Override possible with proper authorization. Attempt authentication." Silvar had no idea what that meant. But if there was even a chance he could stop this war machine, he had to try. He nodded. "Yes. Attempt authentication." The AI's face flickered. The warship's lights pulsed faster. The hum of energy running through the ship shifted. And then, a new message appeared. "One registered crew member detected. Biometric match, 86%. Silvar's heart nearly stopped. Registered crew. Biometric match. He wasn't human. That was impossible. But the AI wasn't finished. The next words sent a shockwave of fear and confusion through his soul. "Proceed with Captain Voss's genetic heir." Silvar felt his entire world tilt. Because that could only mean one thing. Somewhere in his bloodline, he was part human. The truth buried in blood. Silvar staggered backward, his mind reeling. Part human. Impossible. His skin was deep blue, his eyes adapted for deep-sea vision, his entire biology's erection. There was no way he shared DNA with an extinct species. And yet, the warship believed otherwise. The holographic AI, Captain Elias Voss, studied him with an unsettling intensity. Confirming genetic sequence. Processing. The air in the corridor hummed with unseen energy. Silvar's suit flickered under some unseen force, as if the ship itself was scanning him, dissecting his very existence. A moment later, the AI's eyes glowed brighter. "Match confirmed. You are a direct descendant of Captain Elias Voss." Silvar's breath caught in his throat. No, that couldn't be true. "That's impossible," he burst out. "Humans, your kind, were wiped out centuries ago. My people, we evolved from the depths of Xerexia. We have no connection to Earth." The AI's gaze didn't waver. Records indicate otherwise. With a flick of its hand, the walls of the ship shifted, revealing holographic displays. Fragments of forgotten history. Images of Earth, of its cities, its oceans, its people. And then, a fleet of massive ships launching into space. Silvar's stomach twisted. Humans had left Earth, not just in small numbers, in entire colonies. And then he saw it, a recorded message. The image of a human woman appeared, her face strangely familiar in a way that sent a cold shiver through his bones. "If you're seeing this, then it means we failed." Her voice was filled with sorrow. "We tried to outrun the war. We tried to build a future far away from Earth, but we weren't fast enough. Our enemies followed. We fought, but we were losing." Sylvar couldn't breathe. "We sent survivors ahead, cryogenic ships, sleeper colonies, hoping that, maybe, somewhere, humanity would live on. If you're watching this, maybe you are our legacy." The message ended. The realization crashed down on Sylvar like a collapsing star. His people weren't just Zyrexian. They were the lost children of humanity. His blood carried a forgotten war, a past erased by time. And now, the last surviving war machine of that ancient battle had awakened. The AI's voice cut through his thoughts. Captain's hair detected. "Do you wish to assume command of the UNSV Revenant?" Sylvar felt his pulse thunder in his ears. Command the ship. He had seconds to decide. Outside, the Zyrexian fleet was on the verge of destruction. The Revenant was still locked in battle mode. If he took control, he could stop the massacre. If he refused, the warship would do what it was built to do: annihilate everything. Swallowing his fear, Sylvar took a step forward. And with a shaking hand, he whispered, "Yes." The warship shuddered. The AI's eyes burned with recognition. Acknowledged. Transferring command. The Revenant had a new captain. And now, the fate of two species rested in his hands. The final stand. A deep rumble echoed through the warship's metallic corridors as Sylvar stood frozen, his heart pounding. "Captain." The word felt foreign, yet it had been accepted. The ship had accepted him. Outside, the battlefield was chaos. Zyrexian warships were crumbling under the Revenant's sheer firepower. The once mighty fleet, his fleet, was on the brink of annihilation. Sylvar had one choice. Halt all attacks. He commanded, his voice stronger than he felt. The Revenant's guns slowed, then silenced. For the first time, the battlefield grew quiet. A message flashed across the holographic display. Override accepted. Awaiting next command. Sylvar exhaled, his hands tightening into fists. The Zyrexians, his people, had no idea what was happening. To them, the warship was still an enemy. And yet, they had no idea it had once been their ancestors' shield. He turned to the AI. Broadcast to all Zyrexian forces. The hologram flickered, then opened a wide-frequency transmission. His voice echoed across the fleet. "This is Sylvar of Zyrexia. Stand down." Confusion. Silence. Then a hissing reply from Admiral Orvox, leader of the fleet. You are on the human warship. You have betrayed your own kind." Sylvar's chest tightened, but he stood his ground. "No, I am saving us. You need to listen." Orvox's response was a furious snarl. "That ship is a weapon of extinction. The war we fight today is because of the humans. They slaughtered our ancestors." Sylvar trembled with anger. "No, we were their ancestors. We were the survivors." Shock rippled through the transmission. Then, Orvox's tone darkened. "Lies." Sylvar knew he was running out of time. The Zyrexian fleet was already recharging weapons. The Revenant stirred. The AI's voice returned, quiet but firm. Enemy fleet preparing to attack. Defensive protocols standing by. If Orvox refused to listen, the warship would finish what it started. Sylvar took a shaky breath. He didn't want to fight his own people. He wanted to save them. A sudden beeping caught his attention. A new signal. From the Zyrexian flagship. A private channel. Sylvar answered. The screen flickered. Admiral Orvox appeared. His scales were dark, his eyes cold. "You claim we are human. Then prove it." Sylvar hesitated. What proof could convince an entire species? Then, he knew. He turned to the AI. "Show them the archives." The message. Everything. The Revenant responded instantly. Across every Zyrexian warship, holograms flickered to life. They saw Earth, the last messages of their ancestors, the war that forced them into the stars. For the first time in centuries, the truth was no longer buried. The Zyrexian fleet went silent. And then, a new voice crackled through the comms. It wasn't Orvox. It was a young Zyrexian pilot. Captain Silvar. Is it true? The voice wavered. Were we human? Silvar felt the weight of history crushing down on him. Not were, he whispered. We still are. The fleet stood motionless. And then, one by one, the Zyrexian ships powered down their weapons. The war was over. The Revenant had awakened not to destroy, but to remind. Humanity had never been lost. It had only been forgotten. And now, it would rise again.